businesses donate shotguns, waders, and hunting clothes for the youth. This event is an excellent introduction to hunting and fishing for the youth. And as you can see here in the picture, pretty big spread. This was at Fern Lake, and we're very thankful for the man that contributes that facility for these folks to do it. So thank you to DU. We want to thank all the sponsors that help with it, the parents, and then all the staff that contribute. We have a big support staff from TWRA that goes out and helps with this event. So great event. Next, we've got two special ladies here in the crowd with us today. And you may remember last month there was a little bit of a challenge that was put out by the chairman, and I think that call was answered, Mr. Chairman. If you saw the special poll that the chairman was fishing with at Pickwick, he issued a little challenge, and I think we're going to see that that challenge got answered. Today, we want to congratulate two young ladies, Lainey Holbert and Sarah Swindle, who won the Tennessee Bass Nation High School Fishing Tournament. They made history by becoming the first all-female team to ever win a Bass Nation High School State Trail Tournament. So, Lainey and Sarah, would you all please come forward? You ladies stand here for just a minute. I want to give you a few facts about that tournament. The tournament was held on Nickajack Lake, where the girls won a 5 bass catch weighing over 18 pounds. Their two big bass were 4.54 and 4.53 pounds each. The girls are members of the Riverside High School fishing team. So let's give them a round of applause again. Mr. Chairman, do you mind coming forward? I'd like to get our Chief, Mark Thurman of Fisheries. Mark, would you come up? We'd like to get a picture made with these ladies. Ladies, we got to give them. Congratulations.
Thank you. Good job, girl. Thank you. Good job.
Exciting. Seeing the success of these ladies and those big bass are a great reminder of why we're doing what we are going to do here today. You're going to see Chief Thurman come up in just a little bit, and he's going to present fisheries recommendations to you all. So we're very thankful. This is why we do what we do as an agency, to be able to get folks out on the lake, and we're appreciative of the commission, and we're going to be looking at the recommendations for approval today in just a minute. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to shift gears now to address an issue that's recently come up that many of you may have seen in the media. So over the past couple of weeks, there's been some misinformation and rumor spreading about CWD testing in Tennessee. This agency is committed to transparency. So today we have a presentation ready to discuss what are CWD protocols and why we have them. So I want to start out with this slide first. Chronic wasting disease is 100% fatal neurological prion disease in deer, elk, and other cervids. Since it was discovered in Tennessee in 2018, TWRA has partnered with government agencies, universities, and partner organizations to manage and prevent the spread of disease. As you can see here on the distribution map, for us, CWD is primarily located in West Tennessee and in several states around us. It's important to keep in mind when we think about how CWD spreads that it's tied to how deer actually travel. There actually have been quite a few studies showing that deer can travel from 10 to 100 miles in just one day or even over the course of a few days. So if we think of our bed here in Fayette and Hardeman counties, it's not impossible to think about deer traveling that distance north into upper West Tennessee or south that far down into Mississippi. One thing to take note of on this map is the clusters. And as I mentioned about the deer, several of you probably read about Buck 140, that Mississippi State had a collared deer. So again, I just want to talk about how far that those deer can move. If you remember, that deer actually swam the Mississippi River multiple times from Mississippi over to Louisiana, and it traveled around 18 miles and sometimes even further coming back to the same area. If we take a closer look at the distribution here in Tennessee, you can see the positive results over time. And again, keep in mind how this disease would spread as deer travel out from the hot spots in Fayette and Hardeman counties. We have the benefit of two rivers on either side of the CWD area, helping form geographic barriers, which could keep deer. But as I just mentioned, it always does not contain, although deer can swim and cross rivers into new ranges. With that in mind, TWRA has several goals listed on our TWD strategic plan, some that relate specifically to testing, including that first one you see there, slowing the spread of the disease and preventing its introduction into new areas. To support this goal, we're currently making CWD testing widely available to hunters at no cost to them so that we can have a strong set of data to understand the extent of the disease. This also helps you all as commissioners whenever you set feeding and transport regulations to keep CWD from spreading. Next, we want to promote early detection and a proactive response. For this one, we have prioritized using the ELISA test, which we will talk more about here in just a minute. And then lastly, as you see, is we've been providing test results to hunters for their own awareness. We've said this before, and we've said it many times. CW tests are not a food safety test, but we want folks to know what that test result is so they can make their own personal decision on what they want to do with that deer. So let's take a look at the steps a CWD sample goes through. So first, look at step one. First, the hunter obviously harvests the deer and submits their animal for sampling. It's dropped off at a freezer location, a taxidermist, or a meat processor. The sample is then pulled by our staff at our new CWD work base and then shipped to the testing lab. The diagnostic lab takes an average of about 10 days to process the test, and then the results are sent back to the agency, and then we provide the results to hunters. If you'll look at this bar graph, last year we sent 20,762 samples through that process and found 808 positive animals. We started some surveillance testing prior to 2018 when other states were finding CWD, but we've really ramped up dramatically since 2018. And in fact, the first year we found 186 positive animals, which was more than any other state had in their first year. Total since 2018 that we've tested is 72,907 samples and 2,761 positive animals. So across the country, there's two main kinds of tests being used, the IHC and the ELISA. Here in Tennessee, we primarily use the ELISA test. Remember, one of our goals is early detection, and one of the benefits of the ELISA is how much faster it is than IHC. ELISA results take an average of about 10 days, while IHC can take up to 6 weeks. Another difference is the processing method, with the ELISA being read by calibrated computer and the IHC being visually determined by a board-certified pathologist. There's also a cost benefit to the ELISA. We're currently providing these tests at no cost to hunters and keeping costs down to ensure that we can sample a larger number. Each ELISA test costs around $22 per sample, while the IHC runs about $35 per sample. That's real money. When you multiply those $72,000 by $22 versus $35, you can see that that's real money to the agency. We've learned a lot since we first found CWD here in Tennessee, and research across the country has continued to evolve over time as well. Now, sometimes it's just easier to see it than listen to me talk about it. So we've got a short video that the communications team filmed last year at Cord Lab. It's one of the labs that we use to run those ELISA tests for us. So if you would, Scott, please start the video for us. Just a second. So what that video was going to show was Cord Lab actually going through the actual testing. Are you going to try it again there, Scott, before I move on? Okay. Technology is good till you need it. I'm gonna move on for sake of time, but if we can get it to work, we'll come back and play it. So to wrap up here on our protocols, let's talk about how the results are reported. If the ELISA test comes back positive the first time it's run, the sample gets tested 2 more times for a total of 3 tests. In that case, we consider all 3 ELISA results. So the results can come back in 3 categories: positive, suspect not confirmed, or not detected. So let's start with the easy ones. If the tests react to CWD in the sample, they're positive, and depending on where the harvest was, they may trigger feeding or transport regulations. If the tests do not react, they are not detected, and regulations are not affected. The tricky one's going to be the 3rd category, not suspect not confirmed. This one happens when the test cannot confirm positive or negative results. And we've all experienced this in our own lives. If you think about when you're feeling sick, if you wake up in the morning, you got body aches and chills, you may have the flu, especially if you've been exposed to that. So you go get a flu test, but it comes back negative. Well, you still know that you're sick. You still have the symptoms. So you're going to behave accordingly, and you're probably going to stay at home, hopefully. The reality is that diagnostic testing isn't perfect, but it's a tool to give us more information. Diagnosing an illness or a disease is not a conclusion from just a diagnostic test. It factors in a patient's symptoms and situation, whether that's by a personal physician or a wildlife veterinarian. When we report suspect not confirmed results, it's because we have conflicting test results and external factors that don't provide clarity. So this 3rd category exists for transparency to report test results exactly as they are. They aren't positive, they aren't negative, they just are suspect. They are just suspect not confirmed. So when we get this result, we also ramp up our surveillance in the area to gather more samples that can provide more information for management decisions. So, commissioners, here's what I ask: that you disregard the rumors as we're confident in our testing protocols. ELISA is a proven lab technique that has been around since 1971 and is not only used for CWD testing, but also in diagnosing a wide range of conditions in humans and animals. Mr. Chairman, that concludes, and I'd be glad to take any questions from the commission.
Thank you, Director. Any questions from the commission? Commissioner Cox?
Director, I appreciate that. That's very helpful, informative, and concise and transparent. We've got in fact, 2 veterinarians. Dr. Grove's on staff, and then we've got a commissioner. But I'd like to, without objection, I'd like to hear from Dr. Grove comments about this, about what he just reported to us, if you don't mind.
Is this mic on? I believe most of the commission is familiar with me. Dan Grove, I'm the wildlife veterinarian for TWA. I'm the wildlife health specialist through the University of Tennessee Extension. I've been working with CWD actually as of this year since about 2003. I've actually, my first time I ever took samples, ELISA wasn't even available as a diagnostic tool. So I've actually watched that test evolve over the course of the last 20 years. I have every confidence in any of the diagnostics that we use. In terms of ELISA, if you get a positive result on ELISA, you have to pretty much trust it as that's a positive result. If you get multiple positive results, there's not anything else that's going to be on the ELISA test. All the diagnostic tools that we use have been vetted. One of the things that we try and do is we try and keep up with the current science. We regularly go to conferences. We're regularly communicating with our colleagues in other states. And we're trying to, I mean, we've got a really bad problem here in Tennessee. So we want to try and be the most proactive that we can be. And so what we've developed here is what we feel at this point in time is the most proactive that we can be in terms of the diagnostic side of things. And I have every confidence in that what we're doing is the most appropriate thing given the current science. And 3 or 4 years from now, the science may change, and we're going to evolve our processes if that is the case. And that's essentially what we've done here is we're starting to evolve our processes as the science continues to change. Keep in mind that prions prior to 1982 weren't even understood that that was a thing. 1982 when they were first identified as being a new class of infectious agent. And so what we're looking at is approximately 40 plus years of research. Most of the diseases that we think about, viruses, bacteria, parasites, things like that, we're talking hundreds of years of information that people have been doing research. But in terms of actually knowing what prion disease was and more specifically with CWD, it's even less time. It's more like, in the 35-year range. And so the information we're looking at is what's been gleaned from other states that have had the issues. So at this point in time, we believe that we're using the best available science, and our protocols are some of the leading protocols in the country. I'll take any questions if anybody has any.
This is not just for CWD, but maybe EHD or any of the diseases that affect our herd. Is there any ongoing research that you're aware of that has determined any immunity that's built up in any individuals in relation to any of these diseases that we're aware of?
For chronic wasting disease specifically?
Or EHD or anything?
One's caused by a virus, one's caused by an abnormal protein. So hemorrhagic disease, which is the viral disease, there is immunity to that. Chronic wasting disease, which is primarily what we're talking about today, there's not recognized immunity to that. It actually causes very little immune reaction in the animal whenever they become infected, because it's just an abnormally shaped protein that causes the normal proteins in the body to misshape. So the body doesn't recognize it as abnormal and doesn't generate immune response to it, versus a virus, which is a foreign entity that comes in the body. The body actually will generate an immune response to viruses and things, but not to prions at this point in time. There is some evidence that animals may be a little bit more resistant genetically, but that's because the proteins are shaped differently, but they still can become infected with the disease. It just takes them longer to die from the disease because it takes longer for the disease and the abnormal proteins to build up in their body. Yeah.
Chairman, I have one thing.
Commissioner Blue.
Not really a question, but just a comment. Dr. Grove, I've heard you giving this presentation on CWD several times across different areas of the state, and I just appreciate your dedication and the way you present it and the way you explain it. And you're very knowledgeable, obviously, on it, and you do a great job. And thank you for it.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, just had a comment, and please poke holes in this if I get it wrong. But to me, between the two tests, I just want to support you and tell you that, from my background, we use ELISA for many diseases. We use IHC and some confirmatory testing. But the IHC, if it's positive, yes, it's a gold standard. But if it's negative, it really doesn't tell me anything. I would not want to be making health decisions for me based on a negative IHC if it were similar in sensitivity as it is for chronic wasting disease. I think we're making the right decision, and ELISA is very sensitive, very specific. And I think it'd be irresponsible for us to make management decisions on an IHC result.
Yeah, I would agree.
All right. Thank you. Anyone else? Director, anything else?
Sir, Mr. Chairman, that concludes the remarks. Thank you, sir.
One more chance at the video, maybe?
Cord Animal Health Diagnostic Lab has been partnering with TWRA to assist with testing for CWD in herds across the state. We're collecting samples, we're receiving samples from TWRA, from hunters, from taxidermists, from deer processors, and we really work with TWRA and various other regulatory partners to prevent the spread of disease within the state. So when we receive samples from TWRA, we are going to first accession those samples, assign them a sample number so we can track its life throughout the laboratory to ensure they don't get mixed up within the other samples. Then we're going to take that tissue, we're going to chop it into small pieces. We're going to take a subsample of that tissue and begin processing it to purify it, to really extract those prion proteins or those proteins that are resistant to degradation. And then we're going to test those by ELISA before reporting those back out to our partners at TWRA. So now that you've heard a little bit about the partnership between TDA and TWRA, we'll pass it over to Jocelyn Rivetta, our supervisor of the CWD testing section, to give you an in-depth view of what happens.
With every single tissue, we pull out our lymph node with a clean set of forceps. And prions like to bind to stainless steel. So it's very, very important that we use one forceps per sample. And then so for every single sample, we're aiming for 0.18 grams to 0.22 grams. We macerate it a little bit, and then each sample gets its own. These are typically numbered. So this will be like, 1 through 90. That we would assign that sample during accessioning. And then we generate this cut sheet. And so it's just like, I know that this, when I accessioned it, this sample that ends in 999 is going into tube number 1. And so for each sample, we, before we start cutting, we check it against our cut list to make sure that we know for a fact tube number 1 is positive, and that means it's sample number 999. So this is our homogenizer. It's a super scientific blender. There's beads in each tube. So think of that as your blender blades. Once we put it in here and I start it, this manifold will rotate like this very, very quickly. And so those beads are in there grinding it, chewing it up your tissue. It started out as a lymphatic tissue in saline, and then it is now a tissue smoothie. I take my syringes, and these are my calibration syringes. These syringes, they're a dull needle, but the diameter of that needle is the largest particle I want in my sample. What we're doing is we're chewing up and spitting out anything that's not as strong as a prion. And so I need my particles to be small enough to where the enzyme can come in, digest it if it's not prion. And so that's why this step is completely essential. So I pull out 35 microliters of my sample. This is our NSP, and it's an automated purification system. By putting it into my deep well plate, we can process 90 samples at a time. I'm going to put my proteinase into my proteinase tub. So I have put my reagents in there. I have my samples, I have my reagents, and this will be my final end product purified protein plate. And from there, we'll run the ELISA. In the bottom of this plate is purified prion. We have essentially layered our different reagents into our ELISA plate. It's an hour and a half later. So the yellow is positive and the clear is negative. We know by looking at this that sample 1 was positive. See, on our plate, if you compare the yellows to the red IRs, which stands for initial reactor, but you can see that it lines up with what we would expect. Like all the yellow ones are positive. Yes. So all the way through, we keep all our samples. Once you are assigned number 1, you are number 1 until we're sending results to you guys.
Excellent. Director, any comments on the video? Any questions on the video? All right. Let's move on. So I would like to ask that Fisheries Chief Mark Thurman to come to the podium for presentations and awards.
Think I have it on. All right. Thank you, Chairman Woods. You know, I always, whenever I'm presenting, a regular statement that I make is related to the work that goes on out there across the state with Fisheries Division employees, staff across the state, the work that they put in, as Director Maxidon mentioned in that photograph of the two young ladies with the bag of fish that they had at the tournament. You know, we're really strongly committed to providing high quality fishing to the public across the state, and we have some incredible resources. The work that goes on out there, like I said, it's just amazing what goes into managing fisheries in the state. And each year we like to take some time and recognize people who have performed extremely well, both in a given year, excuse me, and over a lifetime. Today you'll see awards presented for Fisheries Biologist of the Year, Fisheries Technician of the Year, Lifetime Achievement Fisheries Biologist, and Lifetime Achievement Fisheries Technician. Our first award is Fisheries Biologist of the Year, and it goes to Mr. Tom Pratt. Tom, will you stand up and raise your hand? Tom is the manager at Humboldt Hatchery, TWRA's largest warm water hatchery. Tom has worked with TWRA since 2006 and has positively influenced fisheries throughout the state of Tennessee. He has a bachelor's degree from the University of Tennessee Martin and spent 2.5 years as a technician at Humboldt Hatchery before moving to the manager level. He is highly respected by his hatchery staff and leads by example. His accomplishments at the hatchery have been instrumental in developing innovative fish culture techniques, improving production of hatchery-reared species. His ability to hold fish, such as trout for the winter trout program and catfish for fishing events, ensures anglers will experience quality fishing at stock locations. In addition to his hatchery duties, Tom manages Davy Crockett Lake, and this year he took on management of Gibson County Lake. Humboldt Hatchery is our source of Florida largemouth bass, a very important program for the division. This year, we saw a difference in spawning activity in the Florida bass at the hatchery, and there was concern that the spawning season would be shortened, which would affect fish production. Tom and his staff were able to extend the spawning process by 3 weeks, meeting statewide Florida bass fry demands. Thanks to Tom's efforts, surplus Florida bass were produced for the third year in a row, which exceeded reservoir stocking requests and provided fingerlings for a first-time stocking at Pickwick Reservoir. Tom was innovative and successful in spawning catfish inside the Florida bass spawning facility, reusing a facility that we'd built for one species, and that had never been attempted. This experiment allowed the hatchery to stock catfish fry earlier in production ponds, which will increase fingerling size for stocking agency lakes. Typically, the larger the fingerling, the better success you have with the stocking. Another example of Tom's ability to be innovative is mat spawning crappie. Typically, when we do crappie culture at a hatchery, we go out and collect our brood fish, put them in a pond. They spawn in the pond, they all stay in there, and we can have predation problems with the brood stock that were placed in there on the small crappie. Well, he was successful in mat spawning crappie for the first time in hatchery history, which provided crappie fry for Humboldt production ponds and supplied fry for other hatcheries across the state. This reduced that predation issue. This technique will increase fingerling production and eliminates predation issues experienced in the pond culture. Tom also successfully experimented in feed training walleye to produce stockable size fingerlings, which will greatly enhance our efforts at creating walleye fisheries in small impoundments. In addition to the innovative work at the hatchery, Tom leads hatchery tours, educating the public about TWRA's management. He is also willing to give stocking advice to landowners, directing them to stocking resources for their ponds. Finally, Tom has worked diligently with our engineering division, designing, planning, and even going out and getting the supplies for a Humboldt hatchery renovation. This renovation will improve the facility and increase production at an already outstanding facility. So, Tom, would you like to come up and get your award? He moved on me. Hey. Our next award that we're going to give out goes to Brandon Harrison. He's recognized as Fisheries Technician of the Year. Brandon's back there. Raise your hand, Brandon. Thank you. Brandon began working with the TWRA in 2007, where he became instrumental immediately in constructing 2 annexes, 1 and 2 at Humboldt Hatchery. These efforts made Humboldt the largest hatchery in the state and contributed to providing over 1 million fish to be stocked statewide. Brandon quickly adapted to operating heavy equipment, which allowed project completion in a timely manner and without delays. He voluntarily assumes the responsibility of completing projects and will continue working until dark if needed. Brandon has also taken an interest in all aspects of intensive culture when these processes were adopted at Humboldt Hatchery, some of the ones we talked about in the previous award. He has volunteered to assist with catfish egg masses, crappie mat spawning, and feed training walleye to increase production and satisfy stocking requests throughout the state. Brandon also took it upon himself to assume the day-to-day maintenance responsibilities at Gibson County Lake in the absence of a concessionaire. In addition, Brandon was instrumental in the cleanup efforts at Herb Parsons Lake after straight-line winds devastated the facility. His commitment and perseverance in completing projects has proven to be invaluable. Brandon has dedicated himself to play a lead role in the Florida bass spawning and production process. His experience and dedication to the Florida bass program has once again produced a surplus of bass fingerlings for the state in 2023 after extending the spawning process 3 weeks past the normal spawning period. He has worked countless hours and 7 days a week during most weeks, including holidays, to produce those Florida bass fingerlings. He's also been instrumental in training new employees in the intricacies of fish production at Humboldt Hatchery, which frees the hatchery manager to focus on other duties. Brandon has been a conscientious employee, and his knowledge of stocking locations has been instrumental in delivering catfish to youth fishing events across West Tennessee. He has definitely performed above and beyond. Brandon has also been extremely valuable in working out the winter trout stocking logistics in West Tennessee. Due to his commitment to the program, he has made as many as 3 hauling trips in a day to get fish delivered ahead of schedule. This provides a unique fishing opportunity to West Tennessee anglers. Brandon also assists with catfish sampling, electrofishing surveys on agency lakes. He has donated his time unselfishly to the agency, and we have benefited greatly from his knowledge, dedication, experience, and hard work ethic. Thank you very much, Brandon. Would you like to come up and get your award? Our next award is a Lifetime Achievement Award, and it will be awarded to Bart Carter. Bart, will you stand up, please? Bart started with the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency in 1994 as the Region 3 warm water stream biologist and promoted into his current position as Fisheries Program Manager in 2010. He was one of the first program managers. During his over 30-year career, he has gone above and beyond in every aspect of his role as a fisheries biologist and regional program manager. He built partnerships with other TWRA personnel, agencies, NGOs, fish clubs, and anglers, enabling him to accomplish goals outside the scope of his normal job duties. For example, BART procured property and helped add new boat ramps and access areas on the South Holston, Watauga, Clinch, Powell, Nolichucky, and French Broad rivers. He designed, built, and repaired backpack electrofishers, supported new techniques at hatcheries, proposed new regulations, developed new techniques for river sampling, a rubber pontoon boat, one of the first ones we had, and ways to launch boats for sampling hard-to-access river reaches. All these accomplishments gave the agency more information to help set fishing regulations and guide management decisions spanning decades. His many scientific contributions include, but are not limited to, development of sampling protocols and regimes, service on agency and AFS technical committees, and monitoring, range mapping, as well as reintroducing and protecting imperiled species, including lake sturgeon, muskie, black-side dace, Cumberland arrow darter, brook trout, and other aquatic fauna. He has also been instrumental in the reintroduction and monitoring through annual IBIs that he developed of many fish species in the Pigeon River. If BART is involved in something, from repairing boats, motors, and trailers, to mentoring interns and employees, to driving hatchery trucks, to writing management plans or presenting new crayfish regulations to the commission, you know it will be done to the highest professional standards, and often before he's even asked to do it. No job is too small or menial or too big for BART, and he is a true leader. He leads by example while providing expertise, guidance, and generally uplifting others around him. Despite all the administrative responsibilities associated with being a fisheries program manager, he has remained an integral part of the team and gets field work accomplished in Region 4 streams and reservoirs and at its hatcheries. Outreach, public engagement, and mentoring others are some of BART's favorite things, and his kind personality enables him to reach people from different backgrounds. He works with regional customer service desk whenever needed and emphasizes calling anglers who have questions or complaints so he can help them understand management decisions and regulations versus just sending an email. Wherever BART is, he brings up everyone around him. Anyone who has had the pleasure of working with BART or under his direction is lucky to have someone so dedicated and talented managing and mentoring them, and is the better for it. The amount of professionalism, integrity, and determination in Bart Carter is unmatched, and he's even more than deserving of this award. East Tennessee's sportsmen and fisheries resources are fortunate to have someone so dedicated and talented managing them during the past 3 decades. I would also like to point out that Bart has been very visionary in his job. He and I worked together in the early 90s, and I remember one day we were talking, and he's like, I'm going to put a website together and put our information out there. It's like, oh, okay. So we did it, and it proved very successful. It was way ahead of things. I don't think we even had a website for the agency at the time. And he encouraged me to build one, and I did. So I had the second one, which was really neat. I also remember working fishing shows. We loved working fishing shows. And we kind of always would stand there with brochures. Bart had the idea to do a series of videos, and we worked on those things. Bart lost a camera in the process, but it got replaced. And I just say that to say we've had somebody here in the agency who has been a leader, who has been visionary and early adopter of important things. And it is with great pleasure that I'm up here to give Bart this award. So Bart, would you please come and receive your award? I also want to point out that Bart was our Southeastern Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies nomination for the award. Her final award also comes from that same work group. It's a Lifetime Achievement Award to Mr. Carl E. Williams. He was unable to be here today. He's not feeling well. But it is truly an honor to be up here to give this award. Like Bart, Carl's somebody I worked side by side with for a long time. And like I said, it's a real honor. Carl grew up near Arab, Alabama, and graduated from Fairview High School in 1979. He joined the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency in August of 79 under the Lands Management Division in Region 4, restoring white-tailed deer to East Tennessee Division, or to East Tennessee counties. He saw the light and moved over to aquatics as a krill clerk on Cherokee Reservoir in 1980, then moved over to Buffalo Springs Trout Hatchery in 1981, where he remained until 87 when he joined the newly formed Stream Survey Unit. During his tenure with the Stream Survey Unit, to say Carl has excelled at managing aquatic resources would be an understatement. Amazingly, Carl is self-taught, except for Dr. David Attenauer's ichthyology and aquatic entomology courses at the University of Tennessee. Carl has become the state's crayfish expert and far surpasses the duties of a technician. He writes status and survey reports on listed crayfish in Tennessee using survey protocols and identification keys that he created. Carl keeps TWRA relevant, taking lead roles in the discovery of and publications of at least 2 new crayfish species using morphometrics and DNA sequencing analyses, and has found several other undescribed species. He is a significant contributor to the genetics bank for crayfish in the southeastern U.S., a major tool for conservation. Carl also excels at photographing crayfish and other aquatic species for scientific publication, National Geographic and others, and created the striking TWRA poster, Crayfish of Tennessee. Carl participates in many projects within the state that have threatened aquatic resources. He partners with TVA, TDEC, the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History, the National Park Service, Yale University, Tennessee Tech University, United States Forest Service, and private consulting firms to resolve aquatic habitat alteration and species impacts. He serves on committees involving invasive species, state wildlife plan revisions, and many others. He was instrumental in developing statewide bait and crayfish regulations to protect our native species. Although Carl is the statewide crayfish expert, that's not his only role at TWRA. As Region 4 Stream Survey Crew Technician, he plays an integral role in survey and data collection. Through his work on the crew since 1987, longer than some of the crew have been alive, he has gained an immense amount of institutional knowledge regarding species, their habitats, locations, and collection techniques. He is the lead fish and macroinvertebrate taxonomist and fixer of all things, without being asked. In the field, Carl's passion for nature and learning is evident, and he teaches everyone around him, not just about crayfish, bugs, and fish, but a wide variety of living and mechanical things. Carl's selfless effort, humble nature, and unsurpassed sense of humor are attributes greatly appreciated by his colleagues. Our summer interns list crayfish work with Carl as their favorite activity, which is impressive considering it involves laying on the ground, being armpit deep in a hole, and getting pinched by a crayfish. Carl has a way of making even the worst and toughest days fun. Over the last 44 years with the agency, Carl has become someone we should all strive to emulate. Carl, thank you for your tireless dedication to learning, teaching our natural resources, and your dependability, passion, and humor that continuously improves everyone around you.
Thank you, Chief Thurman. At this time, I'd like to call Chief Benedict to the podium.
see. Check. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, for the invitation to share these awards for our staff that have excelled over the last year or so. It's one of the most rewarding things I get to do each year is to celebrate our staff and their accomplishments. Today we have nominations and recipients for the 2023 Wildlife Biologist and Wildlife Technician of the Year. These folks were recognized by their peers, which is an important component of this, for their work and their effort and their dedication to their jobs during the last year. Also want to thank Vincent Pontello, our Region 3 Wildlife Program Manager. He leads our awards team with another group of folks to gather the nominations and do some ranking for those. So thank you for your leadership in that, Vincent. So we'll start with a list of the nominees. It's important to me that we share the folks that were nominated. So in Region 1, these are Technicians of the Year: Jim Mulliken. Region 2, Justin Melson. Region 3, Chris Harris. Region 4, Jacob Owen. In the Biologist of the Year, we didn't have one in Region 1, so I put a little pressure on those folks to nominate their peers next year. Region 2 is Mark Vance. Region 3, Mitch Kluwer. Region 4, John Mike. And Region 5, Benod Shopagan. He's our human dimension person. Is this too loud for y'all? Okay. So the 2023 Wildlife Technician of the Year goes to Mr. Chris Harris. Chris, if you would stand. This is kind of a continuation of sorts from the Fisheries Awards, because we stole Chris from Fisheries a few years ago. Since then, he's been an invaluable asset to our Region 3 Uchee and North Chickamauga WMA team. He bought in quickly to our vision and has made immediate impact on our WMA and the work group. Chris works with minimal supervision and often alone. He takes it upon himself to research and find the optimum way to improve management on the area. With his trade and technical skills, we've been able to make significant improvements to critical infrastructure on both Uchee and North Chick. His first responder background has been instrumental in handling incidents that occur on the area. His passion for the resource can be visualized, can be seen with improved habitat on the ground. The dove fields have improved, as have the harvest numbers. Early successional habitat where he worked has significantly improved. And according to the public, the waterfowl areas are more ducky. He's great with constituents, has developed personal relationships with many of them, and he often greets them by name when he sees them on the area. He never seems to meet a stranger. He works well with the work group and is a genuine person to be around. I'm proud of Chris and his work, and I can't wait to see what he accomplishes in the future. So, Chris, if you'd like to come up with your wife for a photo. Check. There we go. So our 2023 Wildlife Biologist of the Year is also nominated for the Southeast Fish and Wildlife, Southeast Association of Fish and Wildlife Agency Wildlife Biologist of the Year. So the winner of this next award will be put in for that category. That award will be given out at the annual CFO meeting, which will occur in October. So Mitch Kluwer is our Biologist of the Year for 2023. Mitch, if you could stand, he's in the back there. We didn't steal Mitch from Fisheries, but we stole him from law enforcement. Mitch is a 2024 graduate of UT. He has a BS degree in Wildlife and Fisheries Management and a minor in Forestry. 2004. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. He's younger than me, but not that young, is he? In 2005, he graduated 5th out of a class of 72 or 73 rather in the Law Enforcement Academy. So that was a great accomplishment and one that makes the Wildlife Division proud. The Telco Lake, he's a manager at the Telco Lake, South Cherokee WMA. The Telco Lake, South Cherokee WMA is over 308,000 acres, and portions are owned by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the Tennessee Valley Authority. Each, of course, have specific restrictions, goals, and objectives for their property. Management of these properties is challenging not only because of the acreage, but also because it encompasses some of the highest elevations in Tennessee and slopes all the way down to the shores of Telco Lake and the Chota Waterfowl Refuge. So a big diversity of elevation there. The user groups are also diverse, including bear, deer, turkey, and squirrel hunters, bird watchers, and field trial dog handlers, and many non-traditional users, including hikers, off-roaders, rally car racers, pretty unusual there, and paddlers. Mitch's demeanor and people skills allow him to gracefully navigate the complex issues of such a diverse user group and also 2 important partners. In the past year, Mitch and his work crew actively managed about 5,000 acres, including forest management, prescribed fire, and fuel reduction on over 4,700 acres, 60 acres of wetlands, and 155 acres of grassland management. Most of the work is part of a large multi-year project daylighting the roads through this huge tract of land. This work allows for roads to be used as permanent fire breaks, provides needed early successional habitat corridors, and improves roadway conditions by allowing them to dry out earlier. It also increases forage in a forest-dominated landscape. Finally, Mitch is committed to learning and self-improvement. He naturally leads by example with a positive and strong work ethic that spreads to others. While he seeks out training courses and collaboration opportunities with other professionals, and he participates in prescribed fire, chainsaw training, bear meetings, and attends workshops regularly. Mitch is a passionate, proactive, and resourceful wildlife manager and very deserving of this award. So congrats, Mitch. Would you come up for a photo?
And we're just so blessed to have such a proficient staff. I can't say much enough about them and how important they are to this agency and how much we appreciate them. And these awards only show a little of that. They're out there each and every day doing what they do. All right, I'm going to turn it over to the chairman of the Fisheries Committee, Monty Blue.
Thank you, Chairman. At this time, we would like to call the Fisheries Committee to order. Fisheries only. It looks like we do have a quorum here today. At this time, I'd like to call the Chief, Thurman, back up to the podium. He's got a couple of proclamations for the Fisheries Committee to look at, starting out with Proclamation 2311.
Always got to remember that. So the first presentation we have for you is a presentation of Proclamation 2311, commercial take of fish and turtles. As you see, both of our presentations today, the commercial fishing and sport fishing regs, the presentations will be a little bit different than you saw last month. We included section numbers and the places that these regulations will occur within the proclamation should you be following them along on your iPads. So our first commercial fishing recommendation was related to allowing commercial fishers to better access silver carp in areas around commercial boat docks on Kentucky Lake. That actually occurs in two places within the proclamation, section 1 and section 2. It identifies the distance that they can be within the proximity of a commercial dock or resort Monday through Friday from 9 p.m. and that's 100 yards. It also delineates it out in section 2 that it can't be set within 300 yards of any commercial dock or resort except for the whip set technique on Kentucky Reservoir. Our second proposal is related to tagging and identifying gear out on the waters. This is a statewide proposal, and the proposal is to allow for slat baskets and hoop nets to just be marked with tags instead of floats. There are issues with gear being tampered with, and as you recall, the Commercial Fishing Advisory Committee made this request with the idea that this will help reduce with tampering of gear and loss of gear. Those were the only recommendations that we had for the commercial proclamation, and that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Chief. Fisheries Committee, are there any questions, any discussion at this time? Hearing none, I didn't entertain a motion from the Fisheries. Motion, Mr. Jimmy, second. Second by Mr. Cox. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? All right, Mr. Chairman, the motion 2311 will go to the full commission. I would refer back now to the Chief for the next proclamation.
Thank you, Commissioner Blue. So the recommendations we made last month in the preview will, if approved, be in Proclamation 2312. The first set of proposals are from TWA Fishing Lakes in Region 1. All of these changes are recommended to help improve with the size structure and thus the quality of fishing in these lakes. Removing the daily creel limit on crappie and the minimum length limit on crappie on Glen Springs, Lake Graham, and Garrett Lake, and then on Garrett and Carroll, removing the largemouth bass daily creel limit, but only allowing one fish over 18 inches to be taken to preserve that larger fish resource in those lakes. Our next set of proposals are for a group of small lakes and ponds in Region 3, Bridgestone, Firestone, WMA, and White County, Indian Boundary Lake, a U.S. Forest Service lake in Monroe County, and Lake Kefauver in the city of Madisonville in Monroe County. All of these lakes currently have regulations that don't allow for enough harvest of bass. So we have stunted bass. We've seen an overharvest of bluegill and red ear sunfish, and then we regularly stock catfish there. And then with crappie, as you see in small lakes, you often have stunted, overpopulated stocks of fish in there, and trying to increase the harvest on those. So on all those lakes, we'll have a 5 bass per day limit, and with only 1 over 16, a 10 fish per day creel limit on bluegill and red ear sunfish in combo, 5 per day on catfish, and then no creel or minimum length limit on crappie. Moving to the Emory River, still over in Region 3. As you'll recall, we had made a proposal to put a walleye restriction, a walleye regulation in place like we have on places like Dale Hollow, Center Hill, Watauga River up in Upper East Tennessee. It's a season January 1 through April 30th. It extends from the Highway 27 bridge in Harriman upstream to the 299 bridge in Oakdale. Anglers during that time will be restricted to the use of one hook having a single point, or one lure having no more than one hook with a single point, artificial or bait, and no more than 3 rods and reels or poles may be used by each angler. The rationale for this regulation is that these fish will congregate in very shallow water, really making them extremely susceptible to snagging of sport fish, as I think Commissioner Cox asked me last month, is not a legal method for sport fish. It is for non-game species, but not for sport fish. And this is also a area that we're seeing a really good number of fish moving into each spring. And while this program, I think since 2011, we've been stocking walleye and seen a great fishery produced through our stocking program, we're always hoping with these programs to see some natural reproduction and see these fish carry on their own to a large degree. And this has the potential to do that, and it eliminates the snagging. Staying on the Emory River, but a bigger section of the Emory from the mouth of the river up to that Oakdale Bridge. We are proposing a closed season, no snagging, no possession, no harvest of paddlefish. We are seeing a lot of fish using that part of that's actually runs into Watts Bar Lake. The fish move out of the lake, they move up into the Emory, and they are in a very confined area. And we are seeing an incredible amount of pressure picking up there. A lot of indication the fish in the tailgate on the back of that truck there was found with the eggs removed. It's a hard area to work. In conjunction with that, if you kind of look to the lower right, there at Lenore City at the dam at Fort Loudon Dam, we've got a really popular paddlefish fishery that takes place, and a lot of people using that as well. So we have a lot of pressure there, and we want to be able to work that, and we also want to protect those stocks of fish that are using the Emory, because in the work that we've done at Watts Bar over the years, we have seen recruitment issues with, and by recruitment I mean year-to-year production of fish in Watts Bar, and think that this will help with the fishery there, and keep a strong fishery in place. Moving to Region 4 in East Tennessee, Norris Lake. Norris Lake has had a seasonal strategy for smallmouth bass for a very long time, but we're not seeing a response in the fishery there to the regulations that we have, and so we're still keeping a seasonal approach, but adjusting the minimum length limit on fish, going to a 18-inch minimum length limit during the warmer months, where we're trying to reduce handling with that daily krill limit of 1, reduce mortality related to handling in the summer. And then during the more liberal season, with a daily krill limit of 5, going to a 15-inch minimum length limit. The next regulation proposal we had was for Boone Reservoir. Boone Reservoir, prior to what we proposed, or currently what's there, is a split season with during the warmer months, so more harvest allowed with smaller fish as the minimum length limit, 15 inches. The people fishing Boone there have requested that we make a change to that regulation and ask us earlier about whether we had the habitat in the reservoir, the cool water that we needed to allow for a 1 fish daily krill and 36-inch minimum length limit, whether we had the habitat for that. And the consensus with staff was that we do. So our proposal there is to remove that seasonal approach and go to a year-round 1 fish daily krill limit with a minimum length limit of 36 inches. staying at Boone, this is related to trout fishing on Boone, and we have a proposal to take the 16 to 22 inch protected length range, the slot limit for all trout that exist on the South Holston tailwater in the upper right hand corner of that photo of the map, rather, and extend that down into Boone Reservoir. We looked at some logistics with other regulations that are in place on the Watauga tailwater, and so we extended that up to the all the way up to the Watauga River, just up to says I think it's 19W11E bridge on the Watauga River arm, and that would be 7 fish creel, only one over 22 inches. On Buffalo Creek, so over in Region 4, on Buffalo Springs Wildlife Management Area, it's currently closed to all fishing upstream of the mill dam, but it's open below the mill dam. You know, it's a intensively stocked fishery, stocked weekly through a large part of the year. And we've had some issues with people getting in there with bait collecting gear, seines, cast nets, minnow traps, to illegally harvest fish. And so our proposal is to restrict the possession of that gear on Buffalo Creek. On Clear Creek, which is a tributary of the Norris Tailwater, of the tributary of the Clinch River on Norris Tailwater, there currently is a closed fishing season, November 1st through March 31st. There's a significant run of rainbow trout that move up out of the tailwater into Clear Creek to spawn, and that closed season has been put in place to protect those fish. It's a very small area, and it also contributes to the fishery as well. And that extends from the Highway 441 to the second dam on the river, that upper on the right-hand side of the map, that arrow there. It's closed to bait harvest, but we are wanting to restrict the possession of bait collecting gear as defined in the bait proclamation there, again, to close up any kind of loopholes that exist that people could be down in there and illegally harvesting fish. That concludes my presentation of proposed regulation changes. I'll be glad to take any questions.
Chief, that's a lot of information you gave out there to fisheries. Is there any discussion on this proclamation 2312 at this point?
Got an amendment, Mr. Chairman. We received some requests from up in East Tennessee on Fort Patrick Henry Reservoir to extend the trout regulations that exist there from the Boone Dam down to the Beulah Church Lewis Millhorn Bridge. And I move that we extend that limit for those regulations down to that bridge. Do you have any information on that? We discussed that a little bit.
Yes, I do. This had been discussed previously, so we put together a map that illustrates this area. It's roughly a 2-mile stretch of the upper end of Fort Patrick Henry Reservoir. Runs from, get my bearings, from Boone Dam here down to the Lewis Millhorn Bridge at Fort Patrick Henry, South Fork of the Holston, and that would be the reach of water. There's a lot of big rainbows and browns that are caught there, and definitely has always been interest in protecting that resource there and conserving those larger fish.
Okay. Commissioner Cox, let me make sure I get this straight. We're extending the trout regulations to Boone Dam to where?
To the Lewis Millhorn Bridge on Beulah Church Road. I can read the regs if you want to, but it's just whatever exists on.
Well, there does need to be a adjustment for that tailwater. That regulation on this particular stretch of the river needs to be applied to rainbow and brown trout.
So would you like for me to read what I
Yes, sir.
Okay. The 16 to 22 inch slot protected length range for rainbow and brown trout, only one of which can be over 22 inches. Creel of 7 trout per day, all species in combination. Right?
That's it.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right. At this time, the Fisheries Committee only, we've got an amendment that has been brought forward on Proclamation 2312. Is there any discussion on it at this time? Yeah. Any more discussion on it? Okay. All right. We need a second on it at this time. No further discussion on the proclamation as read by Commissioner Cox. Jimmy. Commissioner Granberry, second. Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. All right. Commissioner Davenport. All in favor, say aye. All right. The amendment passes as read by Commissioner Cox.
Commissioner Blue,
Yes.
could I take care of a housekeeping note that I
Please.
saw here before we vote on the whole
Right.
proc?
Okay.
It came to our attention as we were working through this, and this is just simply a housekeeping item, that we had a creel limit, daily creel limit for private waters across the state that was in the proclamation. That was a bit of an artifact from some old, from an old part of TCA, and that was updated this year. So we removed that as well. That won't be in there. The proc that you're voting on will not have that private waters daily creel limit. And that was just a housekeeping.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions on that from the fisheries? On that housekeeping issue the chief brought up? All right. Fisheries Committee only. I guess now we're going to vote on Proclamation 2312 with the amendment that was approved shortly ago.
Approval of Proclamation 2312 as amended.
All right. Second. Second. All in favor, say aye. All right. Thank you, Fisheries. We will move both 2311 and 2312. 2312 as amended, Chairman, to the full commission for further action.
Thank you, Commissioner Blue. The full commission will take those proclamations up after a 10-minute break.
Let me say something before we break. I would like to compliment, I just got word that the Kentucky Fish and Wildlife folks have moved to approve protections for catfish, similar to what the regulations are in Tennessee. It's not exactly, but it's a huge step, and I'd like to thank them for that.
All right, we're reconvening. Commissioner Blue has turned over the two proclamations. One has presented, one has amended to the full commission. So I'll entertain questions from the full commission on Proclamation 23-11, commercial take of fish and turtles. Commission members, you've heard the presentation. Are there any questions or discussion? All right, hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second? Someone? Second. Any further discussion? All right, hearing no discussion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion approves. Okay, moving on to the sport fishing proclamation. Commission members, you've heard the presentation has amended. And any discussion there? Okay, do I have a motion? Okay, I have a motion
Second.
to approve and a second. Proclamation 2312 has amended. All those in favor?
Aye.
Proclamation 2312, sport fishing has amended, approved. And passes. Okay, at this time, I'd like to ask Ken Tarkington to the podium.
Red zone. Now I can be heard. Hot dog, I want to be heard. I'm reporting through the month of July, first month of this fiscal year. If you can follow along with me on the slides or in your or with your what you have on your table there. At the top of the page or the first slide is the boating fund. The registration income is approximately 68,000 less than projected for this year for the month of July. The expense to total budget is at 5.2%. And the next slide or the middle of the page is the wildlife fund. License revenue is approximately 136,000 less than license income. And the expense to budget is 3.5% of the annual allotment. I will say this, it appears, which it is, both boating and wildlife less than what the projection, but that's my projection. And I'm projecting on what we think we will receive this year based on a monthly basis. And as you recall, the 365-day license has altered our revenue stream per month. So we may actually be higher in 1 month than we should be or lower. But I feel right now we still have good estimates for the both revenues for the fiscal year. At the bottom of the page or the next slide, third slide, is the Wetlands Acquisition Fund. We have approximately $16,100,000. And the last slide or last page is the condition of our endowments or our lifetime investments. The SPIF rate or the investment or the interest earned on idle excess funds through or for July was 5.1%. Any questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to go back to the license sales. The budget we passed, you showed a potential negative of license sales of $4 million or $5 million or something. With these numbers, do you still think it's going to be that short, or do you think we're seeing the 365 show up and not going to be that short?
I think we'll see more of the 365 show up.
So
yes.
We're getting closer to
yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you.
Any other business from the commission at all?
Mr. Chairman, just one last
Yes.
thing. I don't want any discussion on it today for whatsoever, but I did mention it to the director. Maybe next month, I would like to refer to the Wildlife Committee about the age of the youth that we allow to apply to either the sandhill crane hunts or they are allowed to participate on the WMA hunts between they're either 10 or 13. I've had some requests that, that we have some uniformity in that, and then the 10-year-olds be able to participate in some WMA hunts because there's fathers that want to, to take their kids and aren't able to put their kids in on the hunt because, they'd like for them both to get drawn or put in together. So just some discussion on that maybe next month. So
Sure. I'm sure the agency will look into that and get back with us. Any other commissioners' comments? Executive Director.
Comment, Mr. Chairman. As you know, fall is in the air, which excites many of us as we feel the tradition of many of the hunting seasons that we've grown up. And a steep tradition across East Tennessee is bear season, and it will be opening a week from Saturday. And I think we have a photograph that we'd like to share with you all. I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh my goodness. So I have one question, Commissioner Saltman and Mike Bell. Did either one of y'all shoot that bear?
We stalked the bear and let his son and our friends take the shot because that's just kind of what the good hunters we are, is let others enjoy the outdoor nature.
Was this circa 1980?
It was when we had the last government shutdown, wasn't it? Yeah, 2011.
Oh, good.
He was about 426 pounds. We had to drag him out. Took us 3 hours to drag him out.
Is that an M&M?
That's a donut. So that sure is a nice looking bear. I don't know about those other two people in the picture. Thank you, Director, for bringing that to our attention. If there's no other business or no other comments, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Adjourned.